The agenda is going to be that 101 that we talked about. What is the Canton Network? And then we'll quickly move to a news and wallet watch. And then the star of the show to some extent is going to be Kadeem with talking to us about BitSafe. And then our small section infomercial explaining how you can join the Canton Network now as a multi-tenant node. We'll walk you through that and then share some good resources that we've seen about DAML development, about Canton in general, and then move to the Q&A. So let's get stuck in. Introducing the Canton Network, I think it's worth starting with one of its key primitive functionalities, which is privacy. And the privacy that it enables at a data level and an application level is allowing financial institutions who have been part in building Canton to bring their workflows on chain for the first time. And it's the first blockchain that has been designed for that customer, that use case in mind. And it has been focused on financial institutions. And right now it is used widely. And Jacob from Canton told me that it's the 5th largest chain that there is right now in terms of a blockchain. It's used by Goldman's and BNY Mellon and the likes of Microsoft, and compliance and privacy are its cornerstones, and this concept of legal finality. Who's using it today? We have a range of household financial institutions, names that many will obviously know, and there are 400 others who aren't listed here that are also part of it. Companies like Microsoft and BP are also part of the network, and that privacy first component is enabling other use cases that are highly regulated with highly sensitive data, with complex workflows to embrace Canton to build applications and start using it. What's enabling this privacy first piece? Well, there are a couple of different pieces to it, but what we want to talk about is this idea of using DAML. And DAML's a language that Canton have built, and that supports building applications with this privacy first approach. And I think there are great resources that we'll talk a little bit about later, but in terms of learning DAML and using it and the expansion of the developer base for using DAML is really important. What working with DAML allows, and the other components of the Canton architecture, is this full granular control of who accesses your application, within that access, what data users can see, and the ability to manage these complicated regulated workflows. In terms of flexing, a little bit about the Canton's use and its volumes today. The figures are pretty staggering, and rather than walk through all of them, one of the things I'd like to talk about is this T+0, which is this instant settlement, which has been a holy grail of financial services for a long time, and delivering it using Canton and via Canton applications is creating enormous savings and opportunities, which is what's driving, which is one of the reasons that's driving its adoption. In terms of its growth and adoption, again, super compelling numbers and adoption. The Telegram group is enormous, and there used to be a QR code on the slide that you could join it, but we can share that with you if you'd like to. There are many new featured applications coming online every week, and the exchange listings have now gone live, so you can access Canton Coin from lots of different places, which makes it easy for people to participate and businesses. I am in Argentina right now, as I mentioned, and it's been great to see how the Ethereum community is interested and learning from Canton as much as anything else. And we had a great event with Sensei Node and Canton earlier this week, where the conversation was about real world assets coming on chain and that trend not stopping, and how Canton's facilitating that, but also about how the idea of ZK technology, or ZK as it's normatively called, is going to be something that sits alongside Canton and enables it on public chain rather than, being something that's necessarily in competition. And that's really exciting. And those discussions were really interesting. So thanks to Sensei Node and Jacob from Canton, but also DSRV who were there. Over to you, Rajesh.
Fantastic. Thanks, Jaydeep. So kind of going into the news of the week, the first news story we wanted to mention was the ETP that was launched for Canton Coin. Bitcoin and Solana and Ethereum all have ETPs, and very quickly after the exchange listings, 21 Shares came out with the Canton ETP, and it's great to see. Essentially, institutions have more access to Canton Coin via this new vehicle, and it just means more exposure for Canton, more interest in Canton. And if you are an entity that wants to invest without having Canton Coin in a wallet, it makes it very straightforward to do that. So great news from a kind of Canton perspective, but also if you want to access the Canton token, essentially. Circle and X Reserve is the other, is the second news story, I guess, from the week. Until now, USDC has been hard to acquire and use on Canton, and Canton's always had a problem of moving stablecoins to other blockchains and vice versa, as all blockchains do. And Circle's X Reserve now means that you can move USDC back to stablecoins and USDC itself between, say, Canton Network and Ethereum very smoothly. And it essentially acts as a kind of burn and mint mechanism where you can send your stablecoin to Circle X Reserve. It'll be locked there or burnt there, and then you can essentially mint the same equivalent amount on the Canton network. And this is super useful because there are all sorts of other more complicated bridging mechanisms that could be used. This makes it very straightforward to use USDC and other stablecoins between blockchains, which is huge. There are others working in this space with Canton, but this is really the first major way to make that happen, which is great. We saw this week that Societe Generale's digital assets team has issued its first digital bond in the US on blockchain. They were supported very much by Broadridge's tokenization platform and with Intellect EU's capabilities. And we're seeing this more and more. People want to tokenize bonds. They want to issue bonds natively as digital bonds in the first place. And all of this is bringing more and more traffic, trades to the Canton network and participants to the Canton network. Over the past few weeks, every week we've seen a major institution adopt Canton or move to Canton or launch a new product on Canton, and we're just seeing more and more of that moving forward, which is super exciting. The big news for kind of Canton insiders this week, really, there's a couple of things. One is there's a mainnet upgrade coming, so there's a lot of testing underway. If you run a validator, you run an exchange, you're probably fully aware of this, but there's some important upgrade testing happening next week. But a lot of the consternation and discord around Canton this week for people who've built applications or people who are involved in the network has been around application rewards. And there are some new ground rules that have been implemented this week, which means that some of the ways that applications were gaining rewards in the past are no longer viable. So things like subscriptions every 10 minutes, ping pong activity between accounts, essentially rewards farming is being offballed in favor of people using using the network for other activities, essentially. And some people might think this is a challenging situation. Actually, the pot of application rewards hasn't changed. Every day there's around $1 million worth of transactions that happen on the Canton network, and a large proportion of that goes to application rewards. So if you're an application builder, you're a user on the network, there's a lot of Canton coin that's made available to you for writing applications that people actually want to use. So if anything, these changes mean that if you're writing an app that has longevity, that has user appeal, there's great rewards to be had from doing that. So we see this as a situation of the cream rising to the top. The applications that have staying power and have a lot of kind of user appeal will continue to get those application rewards, and that's very much by design, because Canton wants to stimulate innovative use cases and new people joining the network. So it's not a situation of people needing to worry about this stuff. It means that more vibrancy and more new utilities and more new applications, we believe. No, as far as I can tell, no new super validators this week, but Taurus and Angel Hack received additional weightings for their super validator statuses. Taurus, as a custodian, has built good capabilities for the Canton Network. And Angel Hack, if you've been involved in any of the great hackathons or ideathons which are going on at the moment, they've been stimulating a lot of interest in people wanting to learn DAML, understand more about Canton. And there are some kind of very real prizes up for grabs there as well. So I just wanted to mention those two. We've talked about some of the kind of new launches and integrations on Canton. And last week we had 14 featured apps that got approved. This week we had another 14 featured apps, and they range from everything from vaults to wallets to kind of exchanges. And again, this all speaks to the kind of vibrancy of the Canton ecosystem. That's 28 new apps in the space of 2 weeks. So lots and lots of change and activity happening, and lots of opportunity. If you are an app builder or want to bring your service to Canton, then there's lots of opportunity to do that. We wanted to kind of present the landscape as we understood it about wallets, because we have customers globally who come to us and say, how do we buy Canton coin? How do we use it on the Canton network? What should we do? And there are lots of kind of resources and lists out there that point to different wallets on Canton. And one of the great things is there is at least kind of 10 software wallets that exist. The challenge is all the ones in red right now are waitlisting customers or invitation only, and it's very hard if you're a new Canton customer or user to access those wallets. So we've been in touch with Republic Wallet, we've been in touch with Cantor 8, Braille and Bron. These 4 wallets are still very much available and open to new users. And what we've tried to do is put them on a sliding scale of which wallets are most kind of retail consumer based through to the ones which are more institutional grade and support things like multi-sigs and multiple accounts within one wallet. So on the consumer end, you have things like Zorro, Canton Wallet by Send and others. And then more rich features around Bron Wallet and Braille and Cantor 8 to a large degree. And then at the very top end, I suppose, what the institutions are using are custodians like Copper and BitGo and others we've talked about in the past. And what's also great is Ledger, which has around 20% of the world's crypto stored on it, is now supporting Canton as well, as is CypherRock, which was approved as a featured app a couple of weeks ago as well. So lots happening with wallets. If you want to know, where to go for a wallet, feel free to talk to us. There's also lots of other resources. But in essence, right now, don't be frustrated if you're getting kind of no responses trying to sign up to these wallets. There are other wallets available, which is good news. Let me hand back to you, Jaydeep, and our special guest, Kadeem.
Thanks, Rajesh. Kadeem, are you there?
Yes, I am. Thanks for having me.
No, it's a pleasure. Kadeem, before I start, I'll try and explain a little bit about BitSafe in terms of the idea that what BitSafe does is it creates institutional infrastructure for using Bitcoin as programmable collateral. And this allows financial institutions to use their Bitcoin holdings in regulated decentralized finance workflows. Kadeem, before we get stuck in and you make that a bit more real, could you tell us a little bit about yourself and your journey to BitSafe?
Definitely. So yeah, I've been in the crypto space since 2018, working full time. I started off with actually trading, and Bitcoin was actually the first crypto that I traded back in college in 2015. me and a group of friends were buying IDs with Bitcoin, and decided, and I was the person who was in charge, and I had some Bitcoin left over in the course of a year that grew from like a few $100s to thousands of dollars without any work. So I became very interested in the crypto space. Yeah, definitely very great. And I started to trade a bunch of tokens, a bunch of smaller cap tokens, and made a bunch there during college. But then the market crashed right before I graduated. So I started off working at Merrill Lynch. I was in the global transaction services team there. And I was pretty frustrated with just how slow the bank ran and how we dealt with our clients. And I tried to pitch different ways for us to incorporate technology into our workflows, and no one wanted to hear it. So I ended up quitting to join a crypto-focused VC fund, who was started by someone who I went to school with and interned for me in college when I was launching a company, which was really cool. So I did that for a year and a half before we had to close that down in 2018 due to the state of the market, or 2019 because of the state of the market. And then I did some freelance consulting for companies within and outside the crypto space. And I also ran a restaurant for a year within my family. We have a few of those. So I ran that for a year before getting back into the crypto space as a VC investor. At M6, launched the research arm, and that's how I met the founder and CEO of BitSafe. Actually, I was looking for projects to invest in and networking in New York. And I think a year and a half later, I was complaining about my job, and we were on a call, and Aki was like, we actually have the perfect role for you. So I joined as the growth lead a year and a half ago, and now I'm the head of growth at BitSafe. So yeah, it's been a great journey over to BitSafe and to Bitcoin, but I think it's been a full circle from when I began in crypto.
Thank you, Kadeem. And then moving on to, what does BitSafe do and how does it work? It'd be great to break down that idea of institutional infrastructure.
Definitely. So yeah, for sure. So we're Bitcoin wrappers. I guess that was the first job that we've had. We've been doing that for about 4.5 years. We started off with our first wrap Bitcoin IBTC, which wasn't too successful. We got to around the TVL of $4.5 million, but the model was the issue for adoption. We were reached out to by Canton sometime last year to bring a wrap Bitcoin to the chain. So yeah, this year we launched CBTC. We've already onboarded around 70 institutions as users of CBTC. In terms of integration and actually being able to use it, that's actually beginning right now. So from the institutional side, you'll be able to swap between CBTC and Canton Coin and CBTC, or sorry, MBTC on Braun next week. And then on the retail side, we've begun a campaign for using CBTC on different wallets on Canton. Build products on top of CBTC. So the next thing we're working on will be yield vaults for CBTC, so that you earn BTC yield on your Bitcoin on Canton.
Okay. And could you talk a little bit, Kadeem, about your new featured app that got approved this week and what that's about?
Yep. So this is going to be around vaulting, which we're very excited about. So the thing with that we realized with building a wrap Bitcoin, it's one thing to build the wrapper, but then there's another thing to build the yield aspect. People care less about the wrapping and more about the yield. So this time around, we wanted to do things the right way, and we have been hard at work building out a yield vault for CBTC. We're hoping to get decent APYs for this. So I would say this is above market, aiming for 10 to 15% or even more APY on this vault. And pretty much we're gonna open this up to people who have a CBTC license already first, and then we'll expand from there. But yeah, this app got approved as a featured app this week, and we're wrapping up the building process with hopes of launching something towards the mid to end of next month as the first version of the vaults. That first version will be using Canton Network rewards to generate yield for the vault. So we'll do some magic there, safe magic, where we hold the assets and just find the use cases for it within Canton, and then we return the rewards after swapping the CCs to CBTC. So that's phase one. Phase two will then be providing technology for risk managers to actually turn their strategy into a vault. So we have a few parties interested right now, and essentially what we'll do is work with off-chain and on-chain yield sources and wrap those up into our vault, so then everything can be accessed from one platform. And then the third phase will be bringing in other chain yield, so exotic yields from like Bear Chain or other sources that are decent, but we want to bring them over to Canton too.
Thank you, Kadeem. And my next question really relates to something that we feel is really important, which is that Canton is a systemically important network. And it'd be great if you could talk about that, both in general terms, but also why BitSafe have embraced Canton and why it's such an enabler of your work.
Definitely. Definitely, I've become very bullish of Canton over the past. I think we've been building on Canton for the past year now. And I would say the more you get into the ecosystem, the better feeling you have of what's going to happen in the future. So just on the top level, Canton wants to bring Wall Street on chain and essentially bridge TradFi with DeFi in a way. And we especially like the way that they're focusing on ecosystem growth by incentivizing apps to come and build software that actually has a use case, and then incentivizing the movement of assets on Canton. So we've seen that in how the network effects have grown the chain there. But on top of that, there's an alignment of vision from both of our sides. So Canton has a focus on secure, private, and compliance. And those are things that carried over from our last Wrap Bitcoin too, which made it just a perfect fit for us. With our Wrap Bitcoin, we align with the token standard on Canton. So it's private, secure, and also we made sure that it's compliant too. If there's an issue with compliance, then you can talk to the team and they can figure out a way to either change the technology or talk to the right people to make it happen. But yeah, I would say overall, on top of that, the partnerships that we built on the chain, like Launchnodes, also have been great, and we've worked with lots of great parties on the chain so far.
Great. And then in terms of BitSafe's roadmap, what does that look like for 2026?
Definitely. I would say it's pretty simple. I think our roadmaps have always been very intense in the past, but now I think we have our heads set straight. So there's probably three main things that we want to work on. So furthering CBTC's launch, so getting the final pieces out there, integrations going, and everything on that side. The second thing will be the vaults launch. So getting that out, getting all three phases of vaults going is going to be very important to us. And then the third thing would be a special project, which is a Bitcoin-backed stablecoin. And we're looking for partners to work with on that right now. We believe that there could be a huge use case for that on Canton. And that's one of the special projects that we're working on also.
Great. Kadeem, thank you very much. There's one final bit that if there's anything that we haven't covered today in my questions that would be informative for the people on the webinar now, what might they be? What did I miss?
I would say don't be concerned about the market as much when looking at fundamentals or who to work with. Both Bitcoin and Canton Coin aren't looking too nice right now on the markets, and I would say there's a lot of things happening in the background, and there's a lot of growth happening. Also, with Canton, it's a very early stage chain with the building going on. So right now it's more of like it's more of a game of, figuring out your play and who to align with, while more apps are being built out and more use cases will become present too.
Yeah, and I think that aligns with something we're talking to clients a lot about, which is this is not a short-term thing, although being part of the network right now is exciting and you can access applications like yours and earn rewards, but it's much more about the medium and long term, where Canton becomes more systemically important than it is right now, and more of a household name.
Exactly. And one last thing I would say is, like, if you're focused on moving assets on chain, the rewards of the chain will follow you. I feel like the chain is moving away from the farming game to now actual assets being moved around on the chain. So that'll be a big focus going forward too.
Great. I just wanted to offer another thank you for coming on today and sharing your insight. If people want to get in touch, we will obviously make your details available. But if there's anywhere in particular they should go, please drop that in the chat to reach out and engage.
Sounds good. Thank you guys for listening. And yeah, you can feel free to reach out to the contact that the Launchnodes team sends. And also you can find us on Twitter too at BitSafe_finance. I'll send that in the chat. Huge
thanks, Kadeem. Lovely to have you on. Thanks, Rajesh. Over to you.
Fantastic. Thanks, Kadeem. So very briefly, I think people now know much more about Launchnodes, but let me give you a very whistle-stop tour of what we do in case you don't. Very simply, we do three things on Canton. We run and support customers in running full validator nodes. So if you want a full validator node on Canton, we absolutely will help you. There's around 20 other companies that will also do that. So feel free to look around. Right now, there are no open validator slots on the Canton network, but I'm sure there will be in the future, so stay tuned, I guess. We also have a lot of interest on a very different model, which is a multi-tenant node participant. So instead of running a full validator node, you can also join the Canton network, get a unique party ID, which is kind of your address on Canton, by signing up to a multi-tenant node. You can then subscribe to applications and use applications like BitSafe, like many of the others that are on the Canton ecosystem, and you can earn rewards for doing that. And in general, the rewards far outweigh the costs of running the node, essentially. And we do all the technical hard work for that, and we're onboarding businesses all the time to do that. So if you're interested in finding out more, please reach out to us. And the third piece, which is super exciting, is Launchnodes Labs, which we launched about 6 months ago. And this is where we do Canton app development and smart contract development. We've done a lot already on the Ethereum blockchain. We've built bridges between different apps. We've integrated to Lido Finance, to Aave yield vaults. And we've built some apps on Canton, and we're increasingly doing that with customers. And that's some of the most exciting work we're doing, actually, is bringing different use cases to Canton and working with a range of different parties across the ecosystem. So if you'd like more details on any of that, please reach out. We'll happily share more. Just to kind of leave you with the multi-tenant information, because as I say, most people who call us in the first instance or get in touch say, we need a node on Canton, we need to be running a full validator node. And actually, a lot of the time, if they want to do things like mint CBTC or do other things, they can do that with a multi-tenant node, and they can be up and running next week if they wanted to. So again, don't think that having a full validator node is the absolute kind of pot of gold that you'd like it to be. There's other options to getting it on Canton. And we're a safe pair of hands, essentially, is what this slide's saying. We've been doing this for 6 years, around 6 months on Canton. And yeah, we kind of love working with clients in this ecosystem. It's a great ecosystem to be involved in. What we also wanted to do was leave you with lots of kind of jump off points to other resources. The Canton Network website's pretty incredible. There's lots of good material there. The Canton Foundation website has been revamped as of a couple of weeks ago now. And again, lots of great information there about how to get involved and the ecosystem. One of the podcasts that we absolutely love is Quadrillions, which is where some of the kind of founders of digital asset and the kind of architects of the Canton Network talk about the early days and how Canton was born. So that's been something really interesting to listen to. If you want to find out more about the history, Google Quadrillions podcast and you'll be able to listen to that. And then Melvis has had a State of the Ecosystem podcast every week for the last few weeks, I think. So again, look that up. You can probably catch the replays as well. He's had some interesting guests. Every week we talk about the latest ideathons and hackathons that have been happening. There are some very real prizes. If you want to build an app for the first time, there's a quick start kit that you can download and you can get involved. So there's lots of ways to kind of get involved in the Canton ecosystem as a developer. It's worth saying there's something like 4,000 developers in the Ethereum ecosystem. There's something like 700 programmers working on Bitcoin projects at the moment. If you looked at the number for Canton, that's a fraction of that potentially, which A means a great opportunity, but B, the likes of Angel Hack have been bringing in more and more people into the ecosystem and explaining how DAML works and how you can get involved. That's been super useful. So if you want more details on that, I'm sure you can find it. There's an ideathon underway right now, which is quite impressive. And just to kind of plug 2 more Launchnodes events. So as Jaydeep mentioned, we don't want to run through the same kind of, this is what Canton's all about every week. So we will be having kind of very quick pointed Canton 101 sessions for our customers and prospects. The next one's next Tuesday, and that goes through everything from the network, why it's different from other layer ones, how the tokenomics work, what application rewards are all about, and how you can join and participate. And then next week is Thanksgiving. So that's on next Thursday, and our webinars are normally on Friday. So Melvis has very kindly agreed to come in next Wednesday. So Melvis heads the Canton Foundation, and he'll be joining us as our guest next Wednesday on this webinar, essentially. So please RSVP to that. I think the event link is going up today, and hopefully there'll be more news, more stories, more insights. We'd love to know direction of travel for the Canton Foundation. Canton's done some pretty innovative things like invest in a biotech firm, which we talked about a couple of weeks ago. So come back for that and ask your questions, because again, I'm sure Melvis will be very keen to field some of those questions as well. Let me pause there. I know that Kadeem's very kindly offered to field questions if you have any for BitSafe, but equally, if you've got other questions you'd like to raise, we'll do our best to answer them as a kind of ecosystem partner of Canton rather than in Canton's shoes, I guess.
Thank you, everybody, for joining. Thank you to BitSafe and Kadeem for making time. If you have any questions that you're not sharing here, please reach out to us at Canton at Launchnodes. Drop that in the chat now. And we look forward to seeing you all soon.
Absolutely. Thanks, everyone. Thanks for joining.
Bye-bye.
Have a good weekend.